Yate, my relatives. Hello, this is Mark Charles. It is Wednesday, November 17th, and I'm sitting down. It's the afternoon, but I'm still nursing my second cup of coffee. It's very good today, and I wanted to just talk with you about a few things going on this month. As I said in the preview of this video, we're halfway through Native American Heritage Month, and I wanted just to kind of check in. And I hadn't done a second cup of coffee in almost a week now, maybe even a little bit longer. And I wanted to make sure I was able to talk a little bit and touch base with people a little bit. So I don't have a lot of time. I actually have a meeting I have to jump on in a few moments, but we'll touch base on a few things here first of all as we get going throughout the rest of the day. I've been actually fairly busy. There's been a lot going on, but before I do that, I almost forgot. Let me acknowledge the land that I'm on. So I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from what's now called Washington, D.C. And I want to acknowledge that these are the traditional lands of the Piscataway. And I want to thank the Piscataway for being the host people of these lands, the indigenous hosts of these lands. I want to honor them as the hosts of these lands. I want to thank them for their stewardship of these lands. And I just want to state how humbled I am to be living on these lands today. So over the past couple of weeks, my schedule's actually been fairly busy. I've been on the road 3 times this month, and we'll have done 4 in-person speaking events, which are pretty unusual for this time of this period of COVID. I was in Gordon College and Boston University about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago. And then last week, I was at the CCDA conference in Kansas City, Missouri. And tomorrow, I fly out to Boston again. I'll actually be back at Gordon College for a different event, and I'll be speaking there tomorrow evening, as well as lecturing or speaking in a political science class in the afternoon there. And then I'll be back in town over the weekend, and I have I'm actually speaking at 2 schools next week. One I'll do remotely, the other one's a school here in DC. But what's been kind of taking me a bit by surprise this Thanksgiving period, and every year between Columbus Day and Thanksgiving is always my busiest time of the year. This is when our nation is most engaged with Native American issues. There's a lot of people searching things like Columbus and Thanksgiving and all the things that come up Native American Heritage Month, and they find my social media, they find my blogs, they find my web pages, and I just get a lot more engagement and a lot more speaking requests. And what's been interesting this year is I've spoken probably 3 or 4 times now, even in the past 7 days, not only about the Doctrine of Discovery, but about white Christian nationalism, and even more in depth about sort of the history around Thanksgiving. And I'm going to be doing more. I might even do something on Thanksgiving this week. If you've been following me, you know that my family and I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. But I do want to do some more teaching about it. And when I was traveling up to Boston, I was actually driving with my daughter, and the theme of the conference, or the panel I was going to be on that day, was titled "Who's Invited or Who's Welcome at Uncle Sam's Thanksgiving Table?" And it had 8 panelists in 2 separate panels. And we were talking about our experience, our perspective on Thanksgiving. And I was prepared to talk about my critique of Thanksgiving in regards to how it came out into the modern era through the proclamation by Abraham Lincoln in 1863, and how he was literally giving thanks for genocide that he was actively committing. But they were doing this because a year ago it was the 400th anniversary of the first Thanksgiving. And so they wanted to have some context about the first Thanksgiving. And I've never done a lot of research. I mean, I know it's a mythology. I know it's not true. I've heard other things, but I haven't done a lot of more in-depth research. And so I was actually discussing with my daughter as we were driving up, and she was looking up some things online as we were driving. And we kind of went down a few trails. and began to study more and learn more about what was known as the Great Dying, as well as how the New England Charter was first written. And so we came across some articles that referenced the Great Dying. And for those of you who aren't aware of what the Great Dying is, it was the period between 1616 and 1619. And due to the colonists and the settlers and the people who were roaming around the East Coast, because they're all from Europe and they had the diseases of Europe, it really unleashed a plague almost among the native population. And hundreds, thousands of native peoples died very, very quickly. And it left entire villages decimated, and bones were just piled up. And it was this plague had literally gone through the land. And one article even identified that's why they had the first one at Plymouth Rock, because it was actually empty. It was the site of a village that had been wiped out. And so that's why they had the first Thanksgiving at Plymouth Rock, because there was nobody there. And then I saw some references to the charter written by King James, who was the same King James who translated the New Testament, or the Bible, the King James version of the Bible. And we found the original translation of the original text of that charter on a website at Yale. It was called the Avalon Project at Yale Law School, and I'm going to just share this into the link really quick, but where you can read it. And it gave the text for the charter of New England. And as we saw referenced, and then later as we read through this charter, it was horrifying. Because what it says is, in these last years there hath been by God's visitation reigned a wonderful plague, together with many horrible slaughters and murders committed against the savages and brutish people there, heretofore inhibiting in a manner to the utter destruction, devastation, and depopulation of that whole territory. Almighty God, in his great goodness and bounty towards us and our people, hath thought fit and determined to those large and goodly territories, deserted as they were by natural inhabitants, should be possessed and enjoyed by such of our subjects and people. Right? King James was literally giving thanks to God that this plague went through and decimated the native peoples, so that the European colonists could come in and claim these lands. Again, the more you study this history, it's always, always, always worse. And it was really kind of disappointing to see how deeply systemic and racist and white supremacist the views were. Even just to see them kind of written out was I don't know if I would say it was a shock, but it was definitely noticeable. And so I've been speaking about that. I talked about that actually at the event where I spoke that night at Gordon College. I spoke about, I want to share this link with you. Let me get this link here. But at Gordon College, I was part of this panel called "Whose Belongs at Uncle Sam's Thanksgiving Table," and I'm going to share that in the chat right here. But I was able to present on that in that session, and I also spoke about it at CCDA, and I spoke about it in an event I did just yesterday for a webinar that was hosted through New Mexico. And so I'm talking more and more about these things, and I'm laying them out, and I may even put them together in another op-ed or blog post that I hope to publish before Thanksgiving comes. But I just wanted to share some of that with you because, yeah, it's just adds to the whole problem of Thanksgiving and the challenges our nation has with celebrating this holiday. I also wanted to share, I've done a few events these past few days. I just did an event this morning with a group called the Baptist Joint Committee. and they're talking about the continuing legacy of the Doctrine of Discovery. And we had a fairly good discussion. And I'm going to share the link of this one in the chat as well right now. And then I also, last Sunday, I preached at a church here in DC. It's Christ City Church in DC. And I preached on radical inclusivity, looking specifically at the passage from Acts chapter 10. And I said to the audience that this was the first time, the congregation, I said, this is the first time I've ever preached this sermon in pants. Because normally I preach it here where I'm sitting and it's a virtual service and I'm wearing sweats or shorts or something. And so that was the first time I preached it in person, in front of a live audience. And anyway, so I was able to share that and preach that, but I'm going to put that into the comment section here as well. And I framed that a bit more from my own personal story. And so it's a little bit different than what you may have heard in the past few, if you've heard me say that online before. But I just wanted to share that with you as well. So anyway, I don't have much time this afternoon. I'm quickly going through my second cup of coffee, but I just wanted to share a few of the resources that I'm working on. I hope to be able to write something and maybe post something before Thanksgiving comes up. And the event that I did yesterday, which was actually a 2-hour event, I believe they're going to release that video publicly, either on YouTube or some other platform that I should be able to share. And so once that's out, I will put that up. And I really encourage you to look at it and to watch it. But yeah, I just wanted to touch base very briefly before this week got away from me. I'm going to be flying out tomorrow to Boston and then be coming back on Friday. So I won't really have much time to do a second cup of coffee with you while I'm on the road. But I just wanted to touch base a bit today. Anyway, that's about all I have right now. I hope all of you have a great day. I hope that the rest of your week goes really well. And I look forward to engaging with you more online these next few days. And if there's any links I can share of the stuff I'm doing in Boston or other things that come out, I will definitely share those out through my social media. So I have my relatives. I hope that you're able to walk in beauty and may we learn how to walk in beauty together. And